Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving headfirst into, well, the most complex thing in the known universe, your brain. We're going to be drawing from the amazing work of neuroscientist Dr. David Eagleman to figure out how your brain literally builds your reality. And this is the cool part, how you can actually shape its incredible potential. All right, let's kick things off with an idea that is, well, it's pretty mind-bending. Think about this for a second. Your brain has never seen, heard, or touched the world, not directly. It's locked in total silence and darkness inside your skull. Everything you experience, it's just your brain's best guess, its interpretation of a storm of electrical signals. Your entire reality is basically a story it's telling itself in the dark. Wild, right? So how does it pull this off? We're going to break it down into 5 key areas. We'll look at the living brain, the learning engine, the illusion of time, how to master your future self, and finally, the secret to keeping your brain sharp for your entire life. Okay, first up, the living brain. Let's talk about the brain's real superpower. Dr. Eagleman calls it Mother Nature's big trick with humans, and it's the absolute foundation of what makes us, well, us. And that trick is neuroplasticity. Now, this isn't just some buzzword. It's the real secret sauce. See, we're born with what you could call a half-baked brain. It's not finished. And that's a feature, not a bug. It means our experiences, our culture, everything we go through, it literally wires up the rest of our brain. That's why every single one of us is so incredibly unique. And the scale here, it's just staggering. You've got 86 billion neurons in there. Each one of those connects to about 10,000 of its neighbors. You do the math, that's more connections in your single brain than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. But here's the kicker, the part that changes everything. That network isn't fixed, it's alive. Yeah, forget thinking of it like a fixed circuit board. Eagleman says to think of them like little creatures, slithering around, plugging and unplugging from one another. It's this incredibly dynamic, living ecosystem that's constantly changing. And this is how your life story, your memories, your skills, they get physically encoded into the very structure of who you are. Okay, so this constant rewiring is happening all the time. But how does that actually, help us learn something new? Like, how do you go from being terrible at tennis to actually hitting the ball? Let's look at how the brain turns effort into efficiency. So think about the first time you tried anything new. You have to consciously think about every single step, right? It's slow, it's awkward, and it burns a ton of mental energy. Eagleman calls this the software stage. But if you practice, if you repeat it enough, something amazing happens. The brain physically changes. It literally burns that skill into its circuitry until it becomes automatic, fast, and super energy efficient. It becomes hardware. And this leads to something that seems totally backward at first. Take a pro like Serena Williams. When she hits a perfect forehand, her brain is actually working less than a beginner who's flailing at the ball. Why? Because for her, that skill is pure hardware now. It's effortless. It shows you the expert's brain isn't working harder, it's just way, way more efficient. All right, from learning, let's shift gears to something even weirder, time. How does all this brain activity shape our experience of, well, time itself? Because it turns out your brain is a pretty terrible clock, and your perception of time is way more flexible and honestly way more deceptive than you probably realize. Have you ever been in a scary situation, like a near miss in a car, where it feels like everything just slows down? A lot of people report that feeling, right? The world suddenly goes into slow-mo. But is that what's really happening? Is your brain suddenly getting a superpowered processor upgrade? Well, to find out, Dr. Eagleman did a pretty wild experiment. No, really. He dropped volunteers from a 150-foot tower. And while they were in free fall, he had them look at a device on their wrist flashing numbers. The results were clear. They couldn't see the numbers any faster than they could on the ground. So that slow motion feeling, it's not happening in the moment. It's an illusion created by your memory. Here's the secret. When you're in danger, a part of your brain called the amygdala kicks into overdrive. It basically turns on a high-definition recording system, capturing every single tiny detail. So later, when you play that memory back in your head, it's packed with so much extra information that your brain says, whoa, for all that to happen, it must have taken a really long time. It's a memory trick. And this explains something we've all felt, right? Why did summers feel like an eternity when you were a kid? Because everything was new. Your brain was constantly writing these super dense, detailed memories. But as an adult, life gets a lot more routine.
You're not writing as much new data, so when you look back, whole years can feel like they just vanished in a blink.
Okay, so if our brain is this easily tricked, can we, use that to our advantage? Can we hack our own brains to make better decisions and outsmart our future selves? The answer is yes, and the strategy is actually thousands of years old.
You know this battle. We fight it every day. It's the war between the part of your brain that screams, eat the cupcake now, and the other part that's quietly saying, hey, remember our long-term goals? It's a constant tug of war between these different networks in your head.
So, how do you make sure the rational, long-term planner wins? With something called a Ulysses contract. It's basically a deal you make with yourself. In a moment when you're thinking clearly, you set things up to stop your future, more impulsive self from messing things up. And yeah, it's named after that guy, the hero from ancient Greece who kind of invented the idea. So the story goes, Ulysses had to sail past these sirens, whose song was so beautiful it made sailors crash their ships on the rocks. Ulysses, the rational guy, knew his future self wouldn't be able to resist. So what did he do? He had his crew plug their ears with beeswax, and then he ordered them to tie him to the mast of the ship and to ignore him no matter how much he begged to be set free. He made a contract in the present to control his irrational future self. And we do this stuff all the time, maybe without even calling it that. Ever put your phone in a time release box so you can focus? Or set up an automatic savings transfer the day you get paid? Even having a gym buddy to hold you accountable. That's a Ulysses contract. You're setting up a system so your best self wins. Okay, last section. Let's bring everything we've talked about together. We know our experiences literally shape our brain, and our memories shape our sense of time. So what's the single most important thing we can do to keep our brains healthy and agile for our entire lives? The answer comes from this absolutely incredible study of a group of nuns. When these nuns passed away, researchers looked at their brains and found that many had all the physical signs of severe Alzheimer's disease. But here's the amazing part. While they were alive, they showed no symptoms of cognitive decline. None. Why? Because their lives were so full of social engagement and constant new challenges. Their brains were literally building new roads around the damage.
And that brings us to the key takeaway, and it really comes down to just two words. Seek novelty. See, your brain's main goal is to figure out the world, build a good model, and then stop changing. It's lazy. It wants to be efficient. To keep it healthy, to keep that plasticity alive, you have to actively fight that. You have to force it to learn new things. So doing crossword puzzles is great until you get really good at them. The moment a task becomes easy and automatic, your brain isn't building new pathways anymore. It's just running on existing hardware. The real secret is to always be pushing yourself into that sweet spot, That place where something is challenging and a little frustrating, but you know you can eventually get it.
Just like Dr. Eagleman says, it's good until you get good at it. And then it's time to stop and find something else you're not good at. It could be learning an instrument, a new language, or even just taking a different route to work. The message is simple. Novel challenges are the food your brain needs to thrive. So what new challenge are you going to give your brain today? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.